Hey, brace yourself, Tall has to jump Poske. In today's realm, we shall venture forth and explore the unstoppable theory of Vernusylph Traptrix Superheavy Samurai. I strongly claim that this 60 card trifecta is gonna be the best way for one to play Vernusylph Superheavy Samurais or Traptrix when they finally get the Menacing Mantis Synchro, which is a TCG exclusive. Yeah, OCG can lag behind too. They should get this in about a month or so. Let's talk theory. We'll start off with Vernusylphs because they are super underrated. Vernusylph Bear is really comparable to Denjutsu Chinoko, a card which is limited in the TCG, so it has to be good. Both of them summon a monster and draw a card, except the difference is Denjutsu Chinoko summons a vanilla, it summons itself, while Vernusylphs don't have to summon themselves, they don't have to summon useless earth monsters. They can summon Machinas, they can summon Super Heavy Samurais, they can summon Naturias, Magnet Warriors, Punk Monsters, you name it. So of course a good player is gonna summon those, they're not gonna summon a Vernusylph themselves. This is why this decklist has ScrapRaptor and Super Heavy Samurais. Vernusylphs do have an Earthlock, but it doesn't constrain the deck too much. People always overplay it. You can still use Super Heavy Samurai Wakaushi after you Earthlock yourself, because his summon effect, which is his most important effect, is a spell effect. So that overlap you can just forget. Float effect is affected, however you always try to do Wakaushi and Bike first. You also try to enter Menacing Mantis first, because this card is dark. This is the only, the dark thing you pretty much have to worry about. You send Gokipol, entering your Traptrix stuff. They usually stop this, so you combo with Pingakulia or you use Awakening afterwards to send Gokipol anyway. You basically do reach Traptrix score, which is, the thing this deck tries to turbo. Dangerous and Vernusylphs both really love hand advantage. You need cards which constantly increase your hand size. That's something this deck solved with Gokipol, Retaliating Sea, and pretty much every earth monster you summon. Unlike Vernusylphs, Dangerous do typically have about 80% or less chance to fail, at which point you only gain half their value, and that has really prohibited Dangerous from stacking up on going second enhancers like Handships and Warbreakers, because if you put too many in your usual Danger Darkwar build, your deck is just gonna fail to itself. Vernusylphs don't have that issue. This is unwritten restrictions Dangerous have, for example. To be fair, Vernusylphs do struggle running spell board breakers because they have to discard monsters, but that's fine. You can run Fear mode, you can stack up on Handships, which are way faster and better cards anyway. You can draw a parallel between banned Dragon Ruler Redox and every Vernusylph. Redox has 3 effects, but you have to choose one of them, which really is the reason why Dragon Rulers aren't that scary. His comparable effect is discarding an earth monster to revive anything, while Vernusylphs can discard anything, including, non-earth Handships, which really matters, to revive an earth monster. So both cards are pretty much locked into earth decks. However, Vernusylphs also do an entire other effect on top of that. So an entire effect outclasses Redox. In fact, the best Dragon Ruler is Tempest, because, the best effect which when Dragon Rulers are banished, such as their attribute Dragon, means Dragon Pool is the best one. Tempest is literally the best Dragon Ruler. Redox should really come to 3. In fact, you can put him at 47. I would not run him in any Vernusylph deck, in fact in any earth pile deck. He's just a bad Vernusylph. Now let's talk about, the best Vernusylphs. The bear is only the 4th best one. Duck and Hills do search on top of reviving, and they search each other, which as you can imagine is quite broken. the fact that you have a searcher which searches a searcher, which then searches a foolicher, which then can send goalkeeper, which then searches another, setter or searcher, which it's really getting out of hand at this point. Awakening can also foolish some other cards other than goalkeeper. The best targets in the game are Revival Golem, which I'm not running, because this deck doesn't need any more rank 4 spam. It's already over optimized for that. In fact, that could be its name. Pingu Kulia Turbo is an alternate name for this deck. You could, of course, send Ishizu Fairy Mudora. Now, Ishizu Fairy Mudora is the best one because its counterpart Keldo actually can't summon itself discarding an Earth Fairy, because you need another Ishizu Fairy in your deck in order to resolve that, while for Mudora the trap activation of Ishizu Fairy trap is optional. Now, I consider it to be side questing for cards to handle cards which aren't on the field, because all effects come to the field eventually. However, Mudora is obviously absolutely ridiculous at doing its side quest of messing up the opponent's graveyard. It can also, put some stuff back for you. Now, you rarely do summon her via her own effect. You're typically, of course, firing Vernalizers because they have one more effect on top of that. But it does occasionally occur when you draw Vera plus Mudora. Now, Vera is here only because of Branded. Branded really struggles negating non-extra deck boss monsters, because I don't know why, but they have so many cards which only trigger once you summon something from the extra deck, and they also all float, so she is there to counter Branded. However, she is in generally just a Vernalizer boss. She in generally helps. You can, of course, revive also, Pudical Murmila for disruption. Her negate is inherent, it doesn't activate, it totally pisses people off, but she's optional. I'm just running her because she's good against Branded. She could be a hand trap. Now, all Vernalizers, are quite stable at this ratio. Bear can be at 2. Vernalizer Easter Bunny is quite underrated. Of course, she's not great in Mandolcha builds. Mandolcha builds have more important Earth Fairies they should be searching, to a point you never, search the worst Vernalizer Earth Fairy. However, she is technically, not the least searched Vernalizer in this deck. I actually search Bear way less because Bear is not guaranteed. The drawing is, volatile, it's an RNG. Bunny is actually, quite great. He just keeps the thing going. You need many names because you'll just run out of names if you have a deck without Bunny. I'd never cut the Bunny out. You can add back, Maxi, you can add back hand traps. He's the only Vernalizer which can be ashed. There are, upsides to Bunny. Great card. Now, moving on, let's talk about some other awakening targets. He is an Earth Foolish. I mentioned, what is it called? Revival Golem. Not the great. There is Goalkeeper is just your main progressor you send with him. Of course, Mudora is your disruption, your setup, whatever you need. Sometimes you have to mess up the Branded float. Sometimes you use it as disruption. Whatever may happen. However, you see this card? This is Tagno Crusader. This card turns all these 9 Vernalizers into pseudo going second cards, because now eventually you'll reach Awakening, and Awakening can send Tackle Crusader. What does this card do? It counters every single floodgate in the game, whether it's Monster Floodgate or Spell Trap Floodgate, except for, Ice Heart, Dark Love, and very few specific floodgates. You bounce spell and trap floodgates. They also, if your opponent has double skill drain, one is set, one is active, they have to immediately chain their set skill drain to the face up one you're bouncing, because if they don't, they won't be able to activate the second one. It just matter, even if they draw double skill drain, you can force out the second one ASAP. Other than that, he flips Vinda face down, he flips Calega face down. You can flip Christia face down because the summoning effect is optional. The main effect is, drawing, searching, foolishing, adding back earths. That's the main effect. You also can't kick off Bunny unless you have an earth engrave, which is why he's kind of the worst one. So you can out Christia, you can put it face down. You won't summon a monster, but you can put down Christia. Same bit, is it Majesty, Vanity, it's Vanity Ruler or Vanity Fiend. And that's ridiculous. You can out Ursarti Clock. I don't think that's out yet in the TCG. By the way, I primarily play TCG, it's kinda rare, I'm doing something for the OCG. You can out every single rivalry, Tikaboo, Gozen Match, every single floodgate. It just outs everything. It's great. It's not useless going first, because you can also put it under XC, like Giant Hand, at which point this is also Book of Moon once Giant Hand detaches, preferably with Dweller. I really like combining Tackle Crusader with Dweller. Also, on top of all that, Super Heavy Samurais can discard it with Scarecrow. TCG lost Scarecrow, which nerfed Tackle Crusader, but I still run him even in the TCG variant, as you saw from the uploaded video, because he's just too good. He's not on the level of Handtrap, but he's like at 70% value of Ash Blossom. However, itself plus 9 cards which access him, that's huge. The deck has deceptively high amount of going second cards because of Tackle Crusader. This card basically counts as like 6 other hand traps. So this is your out to anything cancerous, and this is essentially what should be attracting people to run Vernusylphs. But anyway, these are awakening targets. We have Mudora, Gokipol, Tackle Crusader. Any other Earth monster is just not tempting for this deck. Now, as far as Super Heavy Samurais go, Wakaushi is insane. I'll actually show you what Wakaushi by itself does. Now, to be fair, it's a 1-card combo, but it does this card in like the middle of the combo, to a point I can't call it really 1.5 card combo, but you can see the board, insane. And end board screenshots from my TCG Full Power Trifecta video, which is best showing core Super Heavy Samurai combos as well as high quality duels, which transfer you knowledge to this OCG version. Link will of course be in the description. I didn't intend to turbo the Super Heavy Samurai Mazoral Synchro. He just happens to be free in the combo from the leftover Diabolantis and Soul Piercer, which is gonna float anyway into another level 4 called Soul Gaia. That is gonna result in a rank 4 anyway, which of course you can also use the Soul Piercer for, but at that point you're ending on a Menacing Mantis, why not just summon the Mazoral. Now, in another screenshot, Super Heavy Samurai Wagon, as you can see, also has quite ridiculous combo. You generate 3 traps, one of which has to be Treacherous Chapel, but that's like the best disruption one anyway. Plus Rafflesia, plus Sarah. Traptrix core gives the Earthspan strategy a purpose. You have strong boss monsters plus the trap generation to lean on as the win con. Soul Piercer ends on identical board to Wagon. These 1.5 card combos really feel like 1 card combos, because the Scarecrow discard happens after you have searched, so the card advantage loss isn't felt. Next up, here are some ScrapRaptor Vernu screenshots, which I have to show because there's the difference between full-powered TCG Steelhead Scarecrow versions and upcoming OCG variant. Luckily I made a video way back on Dinosaur Super Heavy Samurai Traptrix. As I was awaiting the Super Heavy Samurai support, the video has duels and combos and shows how much value Vernusylphs add to the deck. In the trifecta, Vernalizers either need couple of discards or an earth monster worth summoning to go far into the Traptrix core. They make the deck non-normal reliant and are the wings of the deck. You wanna draw them as much as possible. Soul Peacemaker and ScrapRaptor are quite interchangeable. Peacemaker is not a brick, this is one card Pinkukulia, which through Arachnocampa search is gonna end up in a Serra trigger. You'll then set a hull. Of course, if you have any other hull, you can easily expand on that. Traptrix Mantis, for example, in comparison to ScrapRaptor and Peacemaker, doesn't go that far because she uses up your Arachnocampa to even reach a rank 4 to begin with. Soul Peacemaker is also an extender in case something goes wrong with your Super Heavy Samurai starters. So in that regard it has one up on ScrapRaptor, and it's absolutely not wrong to run multiple copies of Soul Peacemaker, even cutting ScrapRaptor in its favor. He's also quite decent against John and Logboard, which does, impact 2/3 of this deck. It only lightly impacts Traptrix core, but it can completely ruin Vernusylphs and Super Heavy Samurais. Soul Peacemaker is also an integral combo part in most combos, so there are diminishing returns if you do end up running him at 3 and using him as your combo starter. Super Heavy Samurai Scales is a progressor. He is an integral combo piece in many combos. He is at times an amazing extender, a one card rank 4 to be frank, because at times if you have a level 4 monster in the graveyard, especially if you're going second, you can just summon him or summon, he's gonna revive the monster. Hey, that's a rank 4, so you have to play Scales. Amazing card. Now Big Benkei is the reason why this deck has a pendulum access. By floating Wakaushi into a synchro you get one scale, you already had Big Benkei your other scale. You can special summon all of your ScrapRaptors, Daihachis, even Scales. It's quite insane, and it's, kinda crazy to think about that. A Traptrix deck does pendulum summons, they do synchro summons too, so an extender, an integral combo piece. You only need one because this is a 60 card deck, you're not gonna need a second one ever. But yeah, that's Big Benkei for ya. Next up we have Soul Boost, currently the main star of TCG variant of this deck, which doesn't have Scarecrow because he is the only soul card you should be playing there. Anyway, he's kinda bricky, he is an extender if you have Super Heavy Samurai cards. He's just, an equip jumper, important for some rank 4 plays. In OCG, he is the least valuable samurai, but you still can't really go without him. Next up we have Regulus. Now Regulus is how this deck beats evenly matched. Traptrix players always cry, what do we do against evenly matched? Well, you can just play this one card, which is not even a brick, because Vernusylphs can summon him. Samurais are machines, so he can just summon himself. You search him by an extra deck card, so that's quite consistent access to him. You just have to pendulum summon under Clifford Genius. Yeah, your Omni Negate, Regulus is fantastic. If you learn how to do combos I have shown in the video, on top of, having Regulus there by Clifford Genius search, then you can say that you have mastered the deck. Just careful, you may clog zones and mess up. As far as machines go in this deck, that's it. Again, you can play more Soul Peacemakers, but do not deviate besides that. There is also Machina Metal Cruncher. Machina Metal Cruncher used to be fantastic. I used to play him in the TCG variant back when Samurai Bike was at 3. Since OCG has semi-limited discard, there is a 33% chance he's gonna fail, so you really can't run him. This has severely dampened the ability for Super Heavy Samurais to have a consistent deck, because they lost 2 Soul Piercers, they lost 1 bike, and they can't compensate with Mechina Metal Cruncher. The list you're seeing has around 95-94% consistency. That's from 500 test hands. Yeah, so the pure Super Heavy Samurai players really are never gonna be consistent to a satisfying degree, because even if you put Max there that doesn't compensate, Vernusylph Bear, you know, he is an upstart goblin, but you still can't really compensate the loss of 3 starters and the fact that you can't really put any spell in a deck to make up for the consistency loss. Another important factor is the deck's extendability. Pure Super Heavy Samurais without Vernusylphs can't really extend well. They just can't. You remove one or the other samurai monster they have, that just means they can't even equip their soul cards and they just flop. If they have Vernusylphs in, sure, at that point they can extend, but at that point their endboard suffers. So Traptrix core gives us the endboard, and we still have the Vernalizer extension, we still have the speed, and that's why this is the better way to play the deck. Chimera is a wannabe Altair in this deck. He just revives ScrapRaptor and then you go into XC. You can't go into Synchro because Chimera says so, but Raptor is a tuner. It plus a leftover Retaliating Sea, for example, could go into Menacing Mantis at times. Now moving on to the Traptrix core, you only see bunch of one-offs. That's absolutely understandable. Mermillo and Mantis are each at 15 actually. Mermillo sets cards, he's the most searched Traptrix monster. Going second, you actually search Mantis because you prefer bodies over Chap generation usually, because that's what breaks boards. You can summon Mermillo to pop back row. Mantis at times does juggle back row back to hand so that you can Holy Tia discard it. Pudica is here for removal. You can put her in the graveyard in combos so that you can Holy Tia revive her. You typically try to do that if they somehow mess up Clifford Genius Regulus Access, because that's just, you know, something which handles evenly match besides Mudora. Arachno Kampan, she's just an extender, she does lock you, you typically reserve her for the Rafflesia at the end of the combo because of the lock and because there's really no other plant rank 4 insect you could go into. Then we have the 2 Adbackers. They add back your holes. I tried playing just one multiple times. Each time I tried I ended up putting back either Genlizia or Daunea. You need both. Genlizia is better going first, Daunea is better going second. You can also pitch a monster with Vernalizers, revive it with Daunea. You can use both in a turn. I mean, that's another factor why you should play both. You can resolve both. You can generate like 4 holes a turn if you wish. Moving on to holes, Time Space Chap Hole is a boss monster out. Boss monsters typically come from the extra deck or inherently from hand. This card covers those areas. Now there are a few exceptions. Balderoch comes to mind. He comes from the graveyard, but it doesn't have to cover every area. It covers enough. Also, everything flows these days. This card takes care of it. Yes, sadly it does burn you, so you might lose in time, but what can you do? Treacherous is super underrated. It's at least the second best hole in the game. It's 2 for 1s. It has an easy activation requirement, which even Rafflesia enjoys. Even you can use it going second. Rafflesia can also foolish the Treacherous Chap Hole to the graveyard by popping nothing, because it will also protect, you know, typically the Genlizia and Serra. Afterwards you can use Genlizia to add back the Treacherous Chap Hole to the field, as well as setting another hole from the deck, which is just, you know, broken in terms of chap generation. Of course, down there I can also add back the foolish treacherous trap hole. It's also splashable in some other decks. Latea, a trap monster Traptrix, always wanted. She's an integral combo piece. She's accessed typically by Serra or Meruilio, triggers Serra. She's also a disruption with its Gerevart effect. You only need one, I repeat, just one. This is a mega wombo combo deck and 99% of matches are decided in 3 turns. Plus, you have other grinding methods like Vernusylph Bunny and whatnot. Nightmare is sort of like Solemn Strike. You need a hole which negates. She should be in every Traptrix deck. Grave Hole, again, this card kinda side quests. It doesn't deal with the field, but it deals with so many areas. It's great at side questing. It might win you in time if you are playing IRL. You know, it's expected for this card to be in this deck, but this is the 5th hole in the deck, the least relevant one as far as I'm concerned. Finally, moving on to the most boring part, which is the hand traps. Now, Maxi is searchable. You just go keep all, search Retaliating Sea, summon it with Vernalizers. Eventually, you're gonna go into Yugioh. This is gonna draw you a bunch. Retaliating Sea is gonna search Maxi. So you can search Maxi, you can add back Maxi with Bunny. Maxi is great. What else do you want me to say? The typical Ash Blossom, Joel, hand traps, Veiler. You can't run Impermanence in this deck, of course, because Vernalizers don't wanna discard. I mean, they can't discard traps, also obvious Super Heavy Samurai restriction. So this is, you know, the Impermanence. They are the same card anyway, more or less. Lancia, fine hand trap. You can also have, you know, Diddy Crow or Nibiru over Lancia. Diddy Crow and Nibiru can really be in the deck, especially because there is no Fenrir. OCG banned Fenrir. Machina, Metal Cruncher, which could overlap with Nibiru, is gone, so the space for Nibiru is there if you wanna run it. Same with Diddy Crow. These are some other hand traps, you know. I hate Crescent, I hate Bell, but you can run them. Token Collector, it's not great, but at least it's level 4 for rank 4 plays. Retaliating Sea is great against Pearly, against, you know, some spell decks which special summon like Branded too. Yeah, this is a valuable hand trap. You also typically add this back with Bunny after you have done your Vernalizer cycle, so you can also generate, you know, 2 hand traps at times, which is just another layer. And once you consider that this deck can spit out Rafflesia, another rank 4 Serra, you know, even a Synchro with Jaws, it ends on bunch of traps. It fills up the graveyard with Holetea and Modora at times. You can even have Tactical Crusader under NXC. There are so many layers. The deck is consistent, very consistent, 95%. You can put more Soul Peacemakers if you don't think that's enough, but it's enough, or if you don't think that's accurate, but it's accurate. The deck has multiple lines of play. Of course, that's super important. You want to have as many lines of play as possible, through boards, through interruptions. Vernalizers give you that, you know, Waka Ocean Buy give you that. Now let's move on to the extra deck. Cerberus is your typical removal. You do calling it, you do spam enough bodies to calling it to draw. That matters. You calling it typically with Donna or with Serra, but if you do it with Donna, Donna can also blow up a card and survive. There is Ningirsu for non-destruction removal. Clifford Genius can negate a card, but you just search Regulus with him, to be frank. Atropus is for game shots, or, you know, minor removal. Serra is just a broken Link 1, more broken than Scarecrow, let's be real, but Scarecrow, you know, thankfully survived. Yugioh is a great card. You get to summon, you get to search. Baguska can help you pin down some boards. Great card. Giant Hand is a nerd. An effect veiler of a sort. Underrated XC. People always sleep on this card, and, you know, if you consider that Trident is a Ghost Logger, this is then an effect veiler. Effect veiler is typically a better card. This actually has stats Trident is 0 attack. If Trident was in the game, I would still run Giant Hand, even if Trident required just 1 extra deck spot. Pingu Kulia, you know, your searcher, you do revive her because even if she has 0 materials, she still is a disruption. You can still attach cards when they foolish, so sometimes after you link her off into Sarah, you just revive her with Vernusylphs, not always, depends how you feel. Rafflesia, of course, broken, going Sacred card to Treacherous. An Interruption, crazy card, immune to traps, can also mess up their targeting. And a Sigmantis is just, you know, a Synchro Progressor. Mazurao, he just jabs. If you activate a spell or trap, he jabs, provided your hand is empty. Now, Max, he may fill up your hand, but he also can just remove himself from the hand, which is valuable, just like Lancia, so you can draw of this card. I mean, that's the deck. Now, Dweller is obviously here for Tearlaments, Phantom Knights or similar. Tornado Dragon is here just for Labyrinth. You do side these cards in, why not? It's a rank 4 turbo deck. Now I'm gonna clear this side deck, and I'm gonna put some cards which you may expect for them to be in the deck, or which barely didn't make it. Now Zolga is an Earth Fairy, but if you followed this video carefully, you may remember that I said you don't wanna summon Vernalizers off Vernalizers, that's backwards. Although, you know, there is some merit to this card, you could potentially scout their main deck game 1 if you win the die roll. It's kinda risky, you're wasting resources on, you know, the deck check. Now the Tron, the problem with Tron is that you need to draw multiple Vernalizers for this card to be a decent extender, because if you search it with Duck, you then need another Vernalizer to proc. It's a summon effect, but yeah, these cards don't help enough for the rank 4 stuff. Keldo also doesn't help enough for the rank 4 stuff, but you of course wouldn't play it for that, you would play it for in some crazy tier Shizu format. If he enters a format similar to that, then you want both Keldo and Kelbeck and Mudora in the deck, but yeah, we are not in that graveyard centric format for one to merit running 2 of those. Kelbeck counters weird tier 14 decks like Dinomorphia. It can be handy against Branded and tier Shizu, but that's only at times. Those decks can pilot it in many ways, so sometimes this card doesn't work against them. If we enter a format where this card fits, this card is then an instant inclusion, but we are not close to such format. You know, it would be nice if we could run this handshot, because it's also level 4, it's searchable by Duck. The timing is just not right. Delusion Trap Hole, I call it Delusional Trap Hole. This card can't compete with Treacherous Trap Hole. You can also, you know, fire off Treacherous off of Rafflesia, just like, you know, the gimmick of firing off Delusion Trap Hole, provided the opponent summoned on your own turn when you're going second. That's not there because Treacherous is a better card. Also, this is a worse boss monster out than Time Space Trap Hole. Time Space deals with floaters better. You know, this may not burn you in time, but who cares. Floodgate Trap Hole also can't compete with Treacherous Trap Hole. They share the easy activation requirement. Treacherous just better. This card is not horrible, but yeah. Carbon is a fine normal summon. This card is not in the main deck because, I mean, Soul Peacemaker is not even at 3. ScrapRaptor is, you know, somewhat better. It is better than Mermill and Mantis, but yeah, I mean, it's not wrong to run this card. If you don't own, you know, some ScrapRaptors, you can put it in. You can put in multiple Soul Peacemakers. That works too. You know, this card essentially searches an Earth Fairy. Being able to search Duckle Heals is broken when it works. Lava Golem, of course, I had Sphere Mode in the other side deck. It doesn't matter. Outing Sphere Mode is actually hard. You typically don't out Sphere Mode. When you Sphere Mode them, you just wait out before it comes back and you stand there entire turn. You don't have that issue with lava golem, but you can also steal lava golem with Vera for, you know, some nice attack value. But, you know, this card just tributes too. I prefer Sphere Mod, but this is fine too. Kaijus is also of course fine. You don't need Lancia, you know, DD Crow inside deck. He can be inside deck. Parallel, Exceed, Rika, Princess, and Shade Brigandine. Now I want to talk about pure Traptrix decks. These are the typical extenders of those decks. Those don't compare to Vernalizers and Samurais. It's even insulting for me to compare those to Vernalizers and Samurais. Of course they don't fit in this deck, you know, this is dark, I mean this is wind. Princess is water, I mean they're just not good enough in general anyway. What can pure Traptrix do going second? Nothing, yeah, so it's a low tier deck, don't even, you know, try to excuse it, it just falls going second. You can't have a high tier deck which falls going second. Of course you can play Shade Brigandine, Superheavy Samurai Lock and whatnot. Speaking of it, the only, you know, card I miss in this deck is Ridor. If he was Earth it would be nice, but yeah. Also, what Earth deck is out there? There is no Fenrir in the OCG, so since there is no Fenrir, what's the point of this? I would also not run it even if there was Fenrir. Gallant can search Tackle Crusader, but there is enough Tackle Crusader access. Gallant is outclassed by better rank force. I don't know why every Vernalizer player wants to run statue, just play Magnet Warrior variant at that point. Just note this, have you seen, you know, the end board? It's well rounded, it has everything, what's the point of statue? And that's it, that concludes the deck profile. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe. This is, you know, the first camera plus microphone video I've done, so give me some feedback. Yeah, this video is a bit too long, but you know, I'm covering 3 archetypes in one, so I wanted it to be 20 minutes. Happens.